Hi, Manning here. Welcome to a Friday edition of the Garden Report. Wrapping up the week. Looking ahead, training camp just about 2 weeks from now. I think 2 weeks from Monday, Tuesday, there'll be media day.
A few weeks.
We're getting there. Sherrod's back. Great to see you, Sherrod. Welcome back here.
Good
And
to be back.
What's up? What's up,
Welcome in,
fellas?
Josue. So, let's talk Brogdon.
Who? That wasn't my line. That was someone else's line.
Okay, Mook. Okay, Mook.
I've been talking a lot about Brogdon. I think his health, his status, his play is going to be one of the biggest, probably the biggest story of training camp going into this year. I'm wondering how healthy he is. I'm wondering where he's at after the trade, almost trade that sent them out to the Clippers. He's still not back. Celtics have been posting a bunch of videos. I'm sure you've seen them, Josue, of all the guys there. Still no Porzingis. They're waiting on Brown and Tatum, waiting on Brogdon. But most of the younger guys are back. Most of the new guys are there. Shabim Luke and Jay Scrub and all of them getting started, getting to work early, Delano Banton. But still no Brogdon. And really, we haven't heard from Brogdon at all this summer. Through the trade, through the injury. That's not strange for him. I think he's a pretty low-key guy who keeps to himself during the summer. But it does add to this uncertainty around him going into this year. And we'll get to those Morris comments in a minute. But Sherrod.
Yeah, some people might be confused. We'll get to that later. Yeah.
I found it strange, Sherrod. A lot of fans turned on him over the injury.
Real quick.
Many want to see him gone this summer.
Including the Celtics.
Yeah.
Right. It might be part of the problem.
Yeah.
But it was a freak injury. And I'm going into this year, and I have my concerns, too, about him. But this wasn't like he had a hamstring strain here and ankle issues here, and he was just injury prone. Oh, yeah, he was very, very healthy and very effective up until that moment.
Yeah, and in the playoffs, it was clear as day that he was dealing with the type of injury that made him useless, I thought, for the most part. There was one game where he had, he was struggling to make shots, and then he had a layup attempt, and he missed the bunny. And at that point, I'm just like, shut him down. And it's not because he doesn't want to help the team. He physically could not help the team.
Yeah.
To your point, Bobby, fans turned real quick on him, and the Celtics were almost as quick as the fans when they tried to trade his ass out of here like that.
Right.
I'm interested to see how he responds to that, not only in terms of his play, but also in terms of in the locker room, because everyone knows they tried to get rid of you. And for Malcolm, this is a guy that everyone loves. He's a great leader. The positives that you hear about him with every team he's been with makes you scratch your head thinking, like, how is he going to respond to being basically stuck with a team that didn't at one point want you around, or they felt that there was someone they can add by subtracting you out that would make them better. I don't know how he's going to respond to that. My gut tells me that he's going to take the high road, say all the right things, point out how this is a business, and we'll all be like, okay, but are you going to go out there and get 15, 6, and 4 a night off the bench? And to me, that's ultimately going to be the challenge for him, is to play with a certain amount of consistency so that our conversations about him will be more about his play and not about how close they came to shipping him out to La La Land.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing, though, Sherrod. Like, he's such a positive and he's such a professional that I feel like he's going to show up. He's going to be that kind of player that's not going to, quit on the team.
He'll speak his mind, though. He will.
I mean, yeah, exactly, Bobby. But I also feel like he needs some transparency here, right? Okay, Marcus Smart is out. Okay, you guys win. He had that press conference introducing Kristaps Porzingis. A question came up about the starting point guard, and boom, Derek White got the job right away. How does he feel about that? I think that's something that they need to be, that needs to be discussed between, the coaching staff, and maybe he's okay with that. Maybe that's not a problem at all. But again, I think he just needs to have that conversation and find out exactly what his role is going to be. Is he going to be someone that's going to be used at the end of games often? Things change, obviously, without Marcus Smart there. And the fact that Derek White got the job right away obviously speaks volumes for how Joe Mazzulla feels about him as a starting point guard. Okay, well, that's fine. That decision's been made. But where do I fit here exactly, moving forward? I think that's just something that's going to be, figured out throughout training camp and around that time. again, he's the professional. He's the guy that's going to show up. I'm not worried about someone like that, quitting on the team. But I just think he needs to find out exactly what his role is going to be.
I don't worry about him quitting on the team, Josue. I do worry about him being around enough to play. Because this is a guy that came here under the load management program. He's going to be under it again. And I kind of understand what Joe and those guys are thinking about having Derek start, because Derek he's the poster boy of durability. And as your point guard, you want that to be the stabilizing force that guides your team all season long. And Derek White, his track record is that he is a really healthy player. He doesn't miss games. Malcolm, last few years, literally 180 of that. He misses a significant number of games, some due to injuries, others due to load management. And with the new rules in place on how, well, actually, he's not one of the top 2 players.
He won't fall under it now, yeah.
He doesn't count. He doesn't qualify for that. But the bottom line is, if you're Joe Mazzulla,
way to throw shade for no reason. All right, go ahead.
I know I did, didn't I? And I really like him. But the reality is, they need to have a stabilizing force at that point guard position, because as much as Marcus Smart drove you crazy, you knew what you were getting from him, and you knew that if he didn't play, it was because he was hurt. It wasn't because you needed to rest him, which is the case you're going to have to go through with Malcolm. So Derek White starting, I think the durability dynamic, I think more than anything else, is why Malcolm is going to be coming off the bench and Derek will be starting. But make no mistake about it, though, Malcolm is going to play. That's a given. But how much will he play? How many games will he suit up? That's a crapshoot. No one knows that. Not Malcolm, not the Celtics.
You heard both from him last year, too. Early in the year, he's talking about how great it is to not have to do everything. He's feeling fresher than ever. And then later in the year, especially once the playoffs went around, you heard him talk more about how difficult it was to come off the bench. The adjustment that was for him. Even just some of the issues the team had when it came to their lack of emphasis on defense, not addressing some of the issues early in the playoffs that popped up in terms of their play. So his voice got louder in that room, and we'll get to the leadership dynamic on this team in a little bit too.
He said that right before the playoffs too. That was kind of weird timing for that.
He started opening his mouth and speaking his mind a little more as the playoffs came around, and as things turned for the worse there. So I'd say my favorite presser all year, Josue, was that one he gave us in the hotel there in Miami, because he was just so honest about all the issues after they went down 3-0. So I do want to get to the leadership here, but you brought up a great point, Josue. Joe didn't hesitate at all saying Derek would be the point guard here. And in that same conversation after the Jalen extension presser there, he's talking about how they have to go through a healing process with Brogdon, and they have to come together again as a team after they almost traded him. But then he's asked about who the point guard is. He's like, "Yeah, it's Derek," which I found, maybe they had that conversation already. But if you haven't even talked to Brogdon yet, and you haven't gotten on the same page after the almost trade, you're just going to come out and say White's the point guard and Brogdon's back on the bench. I don't know. That was
rip
an
the Band-Aid off.
Yeah,
rip it off.
Yeah, right. Before you guys keep asking me about this later, I'm just going to get it out there now. Yeah, it seemed like that's the way he responded to it. And that's right. It was the extension press conference. But yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, again, they're assuming the same thing that I am. He's a professional. He's not going to quit on us. But it's just like, well, is his heart going to be in it? Is he going to feel the vibe of this team and say like, okay, I'm back. I can be the sixth man that you need me to be. Obviously, he took that role last season. Obviously, he was vocal about it. But how does he respond this time around with Marcus, not in the picture? I mean, the longest tenure Celtic, the guy who was already the starting point guard when Malcolm came to Boston, right? Everything was already decided. Now things have changed, and that decision's already been made without a conversation and without even, this is months before training camp.
Yeah, it's problematic for Malcolm, because you kind of wish that when Joe anointed Derek White the starting point guard, that he would have give you some kind of context as to why Derek versus Malcolm, because you got two guys who both have shown the ability to be significant contributors to your team as a starter and as a reserve. And one guy in Malcolm who, again, you look at Malcolm's body of work in the NBA, it's better than Derek White's. And that's no diss on Derek. It's just that Malcolm has done more in this league as a guy who was a second-round pick versus Derek White, who was a late first-round pick. But for Joe to make that anointment so quickly and without there really being a clear and undeniable this guy is better than that guy, comparison, it's a little bit surprising. But again, the only thing I can think of that in my mind would make a lot of sense of doing that quickly was they made the decision that Malcolm is going to come off our bench again because that's the best chance we have of keeping him healthy for what really matters to us, which is the playoffs. Whereas Derek White, just the opposite. He's been just one of the Iron Men of the NBA in terms of games played, and they've been able to add to his workload, last couple of years in Boston where he's playing more minutes. So you don't have to worry about him playing heavier minutes. You don't have to worry about him missing games for the most part. And again, at that point guard position, you want to absolutely have some stability. And if they're going to be a better balanced team defensively, then Derek White, again, makes a lot of sense being a starting point guard.
I think we all agree White should start, right? Sherrod and Josue. So it's the right move. I do want to play this here. The sounds so good, I can't pass it up. Josue put me onto this. Markieff Morris, Markieff Morris.
Great episode of all the smoke, man. They always do a good job.
Here's what they had to say about Brogdon going in the next year. Oop, here we
go. Like a couple more pieces away, but I mean, I'm a fan of Tatum. Like, I'm a fan of Brown.
You
too.
Cool with them losing Smart?
No, I didn't like that.
Can Brogdon fill that role?
Who? I ain't hear you say it.
Brogdon.
Nah, hell no. Brogdon a good player, and I don't take away his game, but like
Smart was the heart and soul of that team.
But Smart is
defensive player of the year. Come on, man.
He is Boston.
He said, "Hell nah."
Yeah, he put that in there. They didn't give you the caption on that. Hell nah. We heard it though.
He's a good player and all. ... Yeah,
he almost caught himself on the who. He was like, "I didn't hear you," and then he's like, "Hell no."
Yeah,
but I think he did hear him. But maybe
he's right though. I mean, Malcolm is a good player, but he's not Marcus Smart. You're not going to get Marcus Smart. I wouldn't say production wise. That to me doesn't really matter because Marcus has always been a guy whose impact doesn't necessarily align with his production. I think there are many games where he was able to give you more than his numbers would suggest that he was giving you. And if you're the Celtics, you need to find somebody who's going to bring the intangibles because that's what Marcus did as good as anyone on his team. And when you start looking up and down that roster, I'm not looking for Malcolm Brogdon to be Mr. Intangibles. I'm looking for him to get you like 14, 15 points, 4 or 5 assists, 2, 3 rebounds, and do it consistently. But as far as like the intangible plays that Marcus Smart is known for making, I'm not sure that guy's on the roster right now.
Right. And I think that's why they laugh. I don't think it's just about a talent standpoint. It's just like, wait, you're talking about replacing who Marcus is, who he meant, what he meant to the city, what he meant to the team. Like that's what triggered that response truly. Like those two are complete opposites in a sense, right? I mean, that's the way, at least that's the way I see it, right? The way they responded to that and saying who, like, no, Brogdon isn't that guy, and he can't be that guy who Marcus was for his entire career up until this point. So I mean, yeah, I don't think it's more about him not being able to be the starting point guard of the Celtics. I just think that void that's left behind without Marcus is more what they're highlighting. They're saying, look, they have to find a way to replace that, and that's something that we're going to continue to talk about, and we'll see as this team develops and as they come together, and we'll see the the identity of this team and who stands out in that sense, in that regard. But it'll be interesting. But yeah, I just don't think Brogdon's going to be that guy, that heart and soul, the kind of player that Marcus was. But it doesn't mean that he can't be the guy he was last season. I mean, that's good enough for this team. I'm hoping that's what the Celtics are hoping, rather, that he could be that guy again.
Yeah, and when you look at what Brogdon brings, the shooting last year, everybody expected that to be a major impact, and it did, given the space he gets playing with Tatum and Brown to shoot open shots. He's going to be awesome there again. He has been for his whole career, as long as he's healthy, which, again, go back to that elbow. It had such a significant impact on his shot. He could barely play, as Sherrod said, in that East Finals. The stats were terrible. I think he averaged like 2 points a game after the injury. So that is the first thing you're looking at. The defense, and I said it all last year, I didn't love the defense from him. Isolation-wise, one of the worst players in the league at guarding one-on-one. The lateral movement with him and just the ability to stay in front of guys. When he got in the post against stronger guys, I liked what he brought to the table there. But defensively, he was a big reason I thought they took a step back there. Guys could go at him and get by him fairly easily. And then the passing's the thing that I think they'll miss most with Smart, beyond the leadership, which again we'll get to. He didn't get to pass the ball and create a ton last year, but the numbers with him in the pick and roll were awesome. He can really navigate that space. So maybe he does get a little bit more ball time now in that second unit. The one thing you got to say about this team, and one of my big concerns, Sherrod, is they don't have a ton of bench scoring. You look at what they lost in Grant. Porzingis is going to start on this team. Rob's probably going to start on this team. So bench scoring, it's Brogdon, it's Horford, who's mostly just shooting threes. And then from there, you really don't know. So Brogdon as a creator is going to be a big deal here too. They really need him. If he misses time, if he's not as good as he was last year, takes another step back, they're in trouble on that second unit a little bit. He's a big part of what they're going to do on the bench.
I think that's going to be the biggest, really low-key, but not so low-key storyline all season is that second unit and their ability, not so much to score, Bobby, but just their ability to make an impact. I mean, if you're only getting like 15, 20 points off that bench, but you got Al Horford locking folks up around the rim, making plays around the rim, allowing you to get out in transition, get some of those other guys easy baskets, your second unit is going to be okay. But they're going to need difference makers. And for that second unit, the role that they're going to need Malcolm to be is a scorer. And I think as good a scorer I thought as he was this past season, I think he needs to be better because they're going to need, I think, a bigger cushion because there aren't a lot of options around. Peyton Pritchard is a guy who we know.
That's another name.
You know, he can get some buckets, but are you going to get the Peyton Pritchard that are we going to get, Pro-Am Pritchard?
Don't do that to him. I knew you were going to do that.
Like the guy that, hardly plays during the regular season. Is he going to get an opportunity? Is Sam Hauser? Is Sam going to start knocking down a lot of those open jumpers that, he was kind of feast or famine?
Are you high on Mihailuk coming in?
I am slightly above lukewarm.
All right.
I'm not hot on him. I want to get hot on him because he size-wise, you love what you're seeing in terms of being 6'7", 6'8", something like that. Consistently shoots around or above 40% from three-point range. The one concern I have about him, and I'm more concerned about him than I was with, some of their other guys, is his defense. This not only is he not from a lateral movement standpoint, I don't think he's great. He's also he has short arms. He's got a 6'5" wingspan, even though he's 6'7", 6'8" lengthwise, and in terms of his height. So that the way that tends to I think manifest itself is that he's not able to contest shots as well as you'd want him to, because when he races up to contest a shot, he's shorter than most guys. At his height at contesting shots. So those are the little things that worry me about him, but he can shoot the damn ball. Yeah. I mean, he can flat out.
I was going to say that's not why they brought him in there, man. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. Yeah.
Listen, when you bring in used cars, they're not going to run exactly like they just came off the assembly line. Shout out to the UADW workers out there in America. Do the damn thing. I'm with y'all.
Hey,
bottom line is this. You see I slipped that in there? The bottom line is he's running to shoot, but you don't want his weakness, which is his defense, to overcompensate or overwhelm what his strength is, which is making shots.
Right, but I think that's why you bring someone like that in, though, to address exactly what Bobby's talking about. That offense, those concerns, like who's going to be the scorers off this bench? Because after Brogdon, it gets pretty slim after that. What are we going to see from Sam Hauser? I think that's someone that could take a step up in terms of his progression and being a more consistent scorer off the bench. Maybe, hopefully I'm right. We'll see. Does he get that opportunity? I mean, he has to fight for it. I think it's another situation as well. Why did he fall out of that rotation so fast in the postseason? Is there something there that Joe Mazzulla doesn't trust about him? Well, maybe he can address that a little bit on the defensive end. But yeah, I think bringing in guys like that is the reason why, the Celtics are hoping one of these guys can stick and be a rotation player that comes off the bench and just gives them buckets, because they need it. They need that offense off their bench because Mazzulla just didn't trust them during the playoffs. And I think that was the biggest reason. They didn't have guys that can come off the bench and score in bunches the way Brogdon did, until Brogdon couldn't do it anymore. And then you realize, oh man, like we got to go 7 now, 7, 8, the way he did, throughout the postseason.
Don't forget O'Shea Brissett. I'm not going to mention Cornette, but Brissett coming
He's
in.
in the mix.
Just did, Bobby.
He's
Don't
in the-
worry. I
he's in the
know you Syracuse guys. I know you guys are thinking about it. I know he's there.
I think he'll earn some minutes here. I do.
Oh no, he will. We'll see how he pans out. He'll get an opportunity.
Yeah, a lot of guys will off this bench. Preseason's going to be interesting. And Walsh, too. I didn't even mention Jordan Walsh, who I give a chance. If he can shoot 40% from 3 like he did in Summer League, you can play, especially when he brings it on the other end, too, where some of these other guys, I think, have some uncertainty on that end. Hauser, as you mentioned, Josue. Mihailuk certainly comes in here. He's probably one of the weaker defenders on the team. Pritchard, too. Guys go after him a little bit.
But those shooting numbers, though, that's the thing, especially catch and shoot.
That bench is interesting because you do have these long defensive guys like Walsh, Banton coming in with that pedigree too. Brissett's had some defensive success. And then you got your offensive guys like Hauser and Mihailuk and Pritchard. So how do you mix and match those guys? It's going to be interesting to see. Even the Horford-Rob decision, I think, is interesting this year. But I want to get back to Brogdon from a different perspective here. But I want to shout out first HelloFresh, who is giving an even better offer. They've been giving you 50% off your first order. Now they're giving you 15% off the next 2 months too on top of that. So they're up in the ante this fall, and it's a great time to get into HelloFresh. Sherrod loves the meatloaf. Josue, big fan of HelloFresh.
Huge fan of HelloFresh, guys. Yo, pick it up, man.
I see Josue posting his cooking from them all the time, and I'm a big fan too. You have 40 recipes and over 100 add-on items to choose from each week. So there's great variety, and they'll handle the meal planning. They'll handle the delivery and everything you need to cook up a tasty meal right at home this fall. You might not have a ton of time. NBA starting up, school, Sherrod's teaching right now. We're all over the place. So you got quick and easy recipes. You got 15-minute meals, so you can just put them together, eat quick, and be on the go again and be back to work, whatever you need. They'll do it from dietary restrictions to even your own preferences. Again, take your pick from 40 weekly recipes that suit your lifestyle. Veggie to family-friendly to fit and wholesome. They have it all. I love the fish package. And HelloFresh is more than just dinners. You can stock your fridge with breakfasts, quick lunches, fresh snacks. Just shop HelloFresh Mark and add any of those solutions to your weekly box. Again, you can mix and match. You can choose when it comes, switch it up, and it's affordable, which is a big one too. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. And right now, if you head to HelloFresh.com/CLNS50 and use the code CLNS50, you'll get 50% off your first order plus 15% off the next 2 months. That's HelloFresh.com/CLNS50. HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit, thanks to them. So Tatum, I hit on this a couple weeks ago when he did this interview with Jeff Goodman of CLNS here and now the Messenger. He talked about Smart leaving. He talked about his dynamic with Brown. I guess he's still out there working with Brown and Pierce in LA, Josue, as we kicked around a couple weeks ago. So love to see that. But the big one here, I think the biggest, most overarching quote going into this season, especially after they traded Smart, is his perspective on the leadership. He said, Sherrod, I'm never going to be Kevin Garnett. As much as people want me to be, that's not who I am. The way I lead, the public may not ever see what I do. When I need to, I make sure my voice is heard, and I do it in my own way. I'm not going to be out there jumping up and down screaming. That's not my personality. As much as people want to talk about it and want me to be that, I'm not changing who I am. I lead in my own way. When I talk, everyone in the organization is going to listen. And whatever I say is always for the betterment of the team. My teammates know that. What do you think of that, Sherrod?
You know I'm that dude, right? Says Jayson Tatum. Y'all all know I'm that dude, right? Don't get it twisted.
Let the record state, right?
and here's the thing about Tatum. I think right now what's happening with him is that he's finally having a little bit better alignment between his confidence and his leadership. I think his confidence has always been relatively high, and his leadership is starting to creep up very close to where his level of confidence is. And what you're starting to see him basically saying, look, I'm going to speak when I feel good and ready to speak. Organization going to listen to what the hell I got to say. The players, all 15, 17 you see around me, guess who they listen to? Me. And if I don't speak, they're cool with that. When I do speak, they're gonna rise up and pay attention because I'm that dude. And it's good to hear him articulate that, because I think he's felt that way for a while, but wasn't, I think, the greatest messenger for delivering the message to the masses about how he goes about leadership. And part of that, I think, has to do with the fact that he understood that his leadership was this thing that was consistently evolving, and he really didn't know exactly what it was going to look like. Because I think there was a time where he was feeling a little bit of outside pressure to be more vocal. And then I think he just got to the point where he just said, F that, I'm just going to be Jayson Tatum. That dude that's going to get you 25 points, at least half sleep. I can literally walk onto the floor and drop 25 and not even crack a sweat. And he's that damn good. And now I think he understands the importance of picking his spots better than he has in the past, of when to speak up and speak out and when to just simply let his game do the talking. I love the fact that he's spending so much time with Paul Pierce, because there's no one in the NBA or within the Celtics franchise that understands what Jayson Tatum is going through right now better than Paul Pierce. Paul knows to put up big numbers and be that guy that's on the Hall of Fame track and not have a championship. He knows what that feels like. And Tatum, I think, has finally figured out, I need to basically tap into some of that wisdom, because I'm in the same boat right now. I have done everything you could possibly do up to this point in a positive way as a player, except one thing: win a chip. Yep. And that's why it's just so important to really understand the magnitude of what these little videos that people may not put a whole lot of stock into, but understand the value that they're going to play in Tatum's understanding and embracing the fact that it's title or bust. Yep. There's no in between. There's no good try, good effort. No. The run up to winning a championship is over. Yep. It's win it or it's win it now. You have to. He has to feel that pressure and respond to that pressure.
If I'm Paul Pierce, I'm like, hey, it's hot out here, ain't it, Jason? Ain't it hot out here when everyone is now everything's turned up a notch? You know, everyone's expecting to win that championship, and now the pressure's really on to year 7. I mean, that's why I love seeing those two, you know, not only working out but laughing together. All the pictures being posted. You know, shout out to Brett Hampton, you know, out there, and it wasn't just a one-time thing, right, Bobby? We talked about
they've been there for weeks, yeah.
There's more pictures just came out this week, and I love that, because you wonder what those conversations are like, but you know that Paul Pierce is also being like, man, I know what that's like. I know what it's like to have that pressure in that entire city expecting you to do it, or people doubting you, because that's essentially what happened, right? At least the last couple of years, even the season that they did make it to the finals, people sort of doubted, oh, can Tatum be that guy? And look, he showed you this past season. Sure, the Celtics didn't get back to the finals, but man, does he have the clutch gene? Absolutely. You know, it saved the Celtics this season against the Philadelphia 76ers, was a huge contributor, you know, throughout that third round against the Miami Heat. You know, obviously they didn't come up, you know, they came up short. He got hurt in game 7, and now everyone's going to be wondering, can he come back? Can he bring this team all the way back and win a championship? So seeing these guys work out, I love that. And I love the fact that he's talking about being one of the members of Celtics Mount Rushmore. I mean, that's another quote that came from this article. I mean, that's the type of language that you want to hear from Tatum, because it's not about winning a championship for his own legacy. You know, he's talking about winning a championship, you know, for the Celtics legacy, and being one of those guys, being an all-time Celtic great. I mean, that's what the city obviously loves. They adore that type of talk, and that's exactly what you want to hear from someone like Tatum, who's been here long enough and has been so close, right? 2 wins away for winning a championship and not being able to get back to the NBA Finals last season. You know, so how do you respond from that? Is he going to have that chip on his shoulder that we're all expecting him to have, but not only just say that in interviews, but show it in his performances? You know, is he going to be a top 5, or is he going to be an MVP candidate? You know, this could be the year. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm looking too deep into this whole, you know, him working out with Paul Pierce, but this could. Am I wrong? Am I looking too deep into this, Sherrod? Like, could this be that year?
Tatum is already a top 5 player in this league.
I mean, but will he be in that?
There's a big gap between him and one, though. There is.
Will he be in that MVP conversation? Could this be
the Celtics? The way that to me, the clear pathway to him being league MVP is for the Celtics to be a dominant squad all season long. Him giving you 30 and some change every night.
What they did early last year.
And he was in that conversation early last year. Right. He has to be able to continue along that path for not the first 20, 25, 30 games. We got to be talking about him being that guy after game 60, 65, 70. Consistency at the highest level is the only thing that's going to keep him from being MVP, because it's not about talent. It is not about ability to take over games. It's about being able to do those things over the course of a season and not just for 40 or 50 games. That's what's going to get him the league MVP. And I do believe he's going to finish in the top 3 this year, an MVP. He will be a top 3 finisher in league MVP.
I think this is that year. I think this is that year where he'll be one of those guys. And that's obviously going to be a huge, milestone for him. But, again, to get back to what you guys are talking about him being a leader, I think it's always been by example. He's not going to be, like he said, he's not going to be Kevin Garnett. It's not going to get in people's faces, but he leads by example. And I think that's how he can, get everyone focused and get everyone on the same page, but now do it on another level. And then doing it with Jaylen Brown. I mean, seeing those pictures of these guys in the gym together, in the summertime, I love that. I want to see more of that. And I want to see how these two can lead together. But obviously, how Tatum's going to be able to take things to another level as a player.
Yeah, and he talked a little bit about that dynamic with Brown. He said, I'm 25, he'll be 27 in 2 months. We're far from perfect. We won't ever get the credit we deserve until we win a championship.
Facts.
Right.
That's the ultimate goal, and you can't bypass all the things we've accomplished in the 6 years we've been teammates at a very young age. We've been to the playoffs every year. We've gotten better. It took time to figure out how we can be special as we can be and how we can coexist and do it together. Everybody says they take turns. I feel like we got to a place where we were feeding off each other, playing really well, he said. So they're trying to get over the hump. Like you said, Josue, a ton of the leadership comes on the court. I think we all see him capable of doing that, and we'll see Sherrod in a minute here. But the leadership, the vocal piece, what they said, Brad, Joe, everyone across the organization, it seems, when they lost Smart, when they lost everything we talk about Smart bringing to the table, is that Tatum, Brown will step up and improve and fill that gap. And I think many argue that part of the reason for trading Smart, and that Smart might have gone in Porzingis deal or any other deal this offseason, is that they want to force those guys to be the leaders there. So yes, we don't see how they might be filling that role. I like some of the things Jaylen's done in recent years to kind of put pressure on opponents, put pressure on the team itself, try to hype guys up, try to bring some intensity on the court that leads by example. Whatever the method is for leadership, I think Jaylen's taken a step in that. And vocally, I think even after games, Tatum's taken some steps there. The thing I wonder, though, and Sherrod got into it a little bit there, when they have bad losses, like the Magic games and the Pacers games last year, Pistons, or whoever it might be, when you hit a losing streak, when you're down in the playoffs, those moments where there's accountability, where there's things to improve, where maybe the team isn't hitting its stride the way it should be. How do they react to that? Because I know these guys are great at reacting to everything they've done well so far, and they've done a lot well so far early in their careers. But we saw it last year, and it started at the top with Josue, and it was the biggest thing I didn't like about Joe last year. They lose a horrible game. Oh, we played great. We did a lot of good things. Oh, what can the team improve on? I'd ask them at times. And it's like, oh, we're doing a lot of good stuff. Not really highlighting any of the shortcomings. And again, like we talked about with Brogdon, they got to fixing and addressing that stuff. The lack of defensive identity, all the different things they talked about in the playoffs. We didn't hear that all year. We didn't hear that from the leaders. Right. Even Smart, as great as he was at calling them out sometimes, I think rolled along with that sometimes too. So he wasn't perfect as a leader himself. But now he's gone, and he was the most critical and willing to scrutinize others of all these guys. And I don't see that in Tatum as much. Maybe there's a little bit of that there with Brown, but he's another naturally quiet guy. That's like there is some level they have to improve here. And as much as I like hearing Tatum say, there's ways I do this that people don't see, I do this in my own way, because I agree he can't be out there throwing chairs, as we used to say with Brad. but right. there is some room for improvement here with him, especially with Brown gone, with Smart gone.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Just the overall approach, getting guys involved. I think a lot of it's going to be something that we're not going to see. I think it's going to be a lot of something maybe in the locker room, things that he does, and maybe we'll start hearing stories about it here and there. But I'm sure there will be a different approach to how he leads this year, especially in the locker room and behind closed doors. And I think Jalen's going to be a big part of that as well. I think he understands the importance of that, and obviously considering his contract, and not that there's going to be extra pressure around Jalen, but it's just that this is the way that it should be. And the trade, I don't think had more to do about getting Marcus out of there so these two can lead. I mean, that's going to happen naturally. I think it was just designed to help these guys overall. Bringing in a player like Porzingis that can spread the floor, that's a big, he's 7'3", can defend a big, a rim protector. I think a lot of that is the biggest reason why you bring someone in like that. Why Brad Stevens was crazy about it, because he's like, man, he checks a lot of those boxes that can give these guys another 20 point plus, a game score, who's essentially coming off one of his better seasons of his career and could essentially be, going into this next 2-3 seasons, playing along the same lines or even better when you look at his stats. So I also do think, naturally it does force these guys to be leaders. But, if you're Jalen and Jayson, you're like, that's the biggest reason why they did that, right? Like, Marcus isn't here because they wanted to help us even more, because we didn't get it done last year, so this is the year. This is the year we get it done. This is the window that we have. I'm finishing up my contract. You're going to be going into yours. Like, this is the chance that we are going to have, probably the best chance we have to quiet the naysayers, silence the doubters, and we come off on top looking like, we get the last laugh. I think that would be essentially the base of their conversation when you think about the relationship up to this point. Like, man, they've been through a lot, in terms of criticism and guys, the media doubting them. And after coming off of what happened last season, the pressure's on more so than ever. So
I think half, it's what you mentioned there with Porzingis and what he adds to the team and addressing some of the front court needs.
Big attack. Okay.
But half is, I think, shaking up the room, shaking up the leadership dynamic, giving Tatum and Brown room to lead. And they have to accept that. They have to embrace that. We say it all the time, Josue, and we'll keep saying it. We all remember when Ime came in and said, we're going to have two captains.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. We've been bringing that up for years, man. Like,
it's so indicative. And I know that was a long time ago and they've made progress since then. But at that time, it was so indicative of these two guys got a lead. And they just both went, nope.
It's like I think Xana's even used this one around that time. It's like when the teacher they want to give out that extra credit, they want to give that leadership role, and there's two people that they have in mind, and the whole class is just like, come on, guys, like, it's obviously you guys, and they're like, no, it could be anybody. Remember the interview? Because obviously that was the question that kept being. It was brought to Marcus, it was brought to Tatum, Brown, and all of them were just like, oh, it could be anybody. It could be him. It could be. I mean, that's really up for the team to decide. It's like, no, you guys are supposed to want that job,
Yeah, Smart addressed it first, and he was like, we don't need captains, which again, to go back to what I just said, that was a problem. And then Tatum followed his lead because, again, Tatum looks up to Smart. The whole team looked up to Smart. Right. And then Brown was like, yeah, it should be Horford. Which, again, Horford, as great as he's been, if he's going to come off the bench this year, if he's going to play less, your voice matters a little bit less. They'll still listen to him. He'll still speak up when he needs to. Brad said as much at the presser for Porzingis. But when you play less, it's almost like it's not quite the Haslam thing, but you got to play to make an impact. And Horford, as he gets older, his contributions on the court will come less and less a little bit each year. So you can't keep relying on him in that sense either. When it comes to voices on this team, it's Tatum, Brown. White's another quiet guy. When we talked to his trainer a couple of weeks ago, he said he needs to speak up a little bit more now too going forward. You think of Rob. I think Rob has made an attempt to make his voice heard a little bit more, but another guy who I think is more keeping to himself naturally. And then Brogdon, he's coming off the bench, and he looks back at last summer and says, I was almost traded. So how can Brogdon effectively lead from his position as well? It's tough. And what Brad said too, because I asked him, I said, are you what are you expecting from Porzingis in the room? Because I do think it's interesting that he's been a guy who's been willing to butt heads with teammates a little bit. He's more of an outgoing, aggressive personality. And Brad was like, yeah, sometimes when you come to a new team, you just got to try to fit in, and, find your place. And it's like, so this really is on Tatum and Brown. Porzingis isn't saving them in that sense. Horford isn't. Brogdon. These are nice voices on the perimeter, but everyone's looking at these guys, and part of it's your voice, as Tatum said, and he'll do that in his own way. But part of it also is how you set an example on the court too, as you talked about.
Right. But
giving up the ball, giving up shots, defending every possession, all that kind of stuff.
I was gonna say though, if you're Porzingis though, it's an easy sell. You know what I mean? It's like, man, after everything he's been through, he's just like, now I'm in Boston. I got a chance to go to the finals. I can, change this whole narrative about whatever it was in the sense, right? That people questioned him from the beginning when he wanted out of New York and he didn't show up for his exit interview, and then things didn't work out in Dallas, and then now he has a chance to, this role that's cut out for him and designed for him to pretty much get those open looks, take advantage of it, and do it on a level that on a stage that he hasn't been on, for years now. So this is a great opportunity for him. But yeah, how are you going to lead though? How are you going to get everyone on the same page and make sure that they're able to do the night to night grind? There isn't those like sluggish stretches like we saw last year against teams that, it just seemed like effort wise, it didn't matter who they're going up against. You had a chance to beat this team if you just stuck with it. You know what I mean? Like, hopefully that's not another part of their identity this season, but that's really up to how Tatum and Brown lead. I think that's a big part, a big emphasis going into training camp and beyond.
Is there enough leadership here, Sherrod, with Smart gone?
I think there is, but it's going to require everything that these guys do well from a leadership standpoint to be stepped up and amplified. They've got to elevate their leadership game. Tatum has to do that. Brown has to do that. Malcolm Brogdon, I think, has to do that. And to me, Malcolm is going to be a key guy, not so much because of what he says or necessarily what he does, but just how he carries himself. Is he going to carry that baggage from almost being traded into the season? Will he be able to process that and just basically make that a non-talking point? And the only way he can do that is to basically be himself, but better, be consistent, but more consistent. Keep that load management to a minimum to where you're taking off games here and there, and that be the only games you miss. You don't actually miss games due to injury. You just miss games for the load management process. And as for Tatum and Brown, Tatum, I'm not nearly as worried about his leadership as I am Jalen's, because Tatum's leadership is built on the foundation of balling. I lead by example. Last I checked, the example that he says is pretty damn easy to follow. I shoot, you rebound, you get open. I might pass it to you. I may not. I'm going to defend. And at the end of the day, I'm that dude.
Yeah.
Jalen,
I might drop a 50 piece every now and then, but
yeah, and I might hit you with a 50 piece every now and then. I might dunk on Joel Embiid every now and then. You just never know. Jalen is the ones whose leadership I'm not sure how it's going to play out, because I do think he needs to step his leadership game up, but I'm not really sure how that's going to happen. Is he going to become more vocal? Is he going to let his play lead? Is he going to, work on that left hand so that people aren't talking about that left hand dribble like they've been talking about all damn summer? What's he going to do to put his imprint from a leadership standpoint on this team? Because I have no doubts that he has that in him. I just don't know what that looks like. And what scares me a little bit more, I'm not sure he knows what that looks like. Because it's there. It's just a matter of him finding it and putting that on Front Street and making everyone see that. I don't know. He's a wild card from a leadership standpoint in my eyes.
To me, this is what it is. You distract the whole 8 turnovers in Game 7. Don't get me wrong. I think James going to work on his game, work on his handle, because that's a big part of it as well. But I think the way he changes things, changes the narrative, is he becomes a defensive anchor. I think that's a part of his game that he he can do it. I really do think he has the athleticism. He has the footwork. He can do it. I want him to be one of those guys where he's the go-to when it comes to defending the opposing team's best player. Oh no, Jalen's got that. You know what I mean? Tatum's gonna cook. He's gonna get his opportunities if he gets back out on the fast break, which we know Jalen can do. He can get up there, you know, on the other side, but then get back on defense and be that guy that can lock down a top-notch score on a night to night basis. You know what I mean? Like, that's going to be part of his identity that I think, you know, says, okay, well, that's the money well spent. You know, that's a part of his game that he's elevated. Also, with the offense that we've seen from him every single year. I mean, he's continued to become a better player year after year throughout his career. So.
I love that point, Josue. And you can't end your press conference like he did at the extension presser. Saying, right. We got to get back to defense and have the defensive year that he did a year ago. And everybody has blame for last year. For Brown, I think a lot of it came on the defensive end. Tatum, some of the shooting inconsistency, maybe his voice atop us all, especially with Joe being there and trying to navigate things. Tatum, I think, reflected a lot of the talk Joe did. Joe certainly has to change in his approach, and the assistants will help in that sense. And then down the line, you know, everybody else just has to improve individually here. You can't look back on last year, and this is my worry going into this year, is for all the panic and turmoil and Wick running in the locker room and all the, I don't want to say dysfunction, but just craziness of that 0-3 hole.
It's a little crazy.
To look back and say, yeah, you know, we had a good year. I don't want to hear that in camp. Like, I want to hear we didn't meet expectations last year. We got to be better, and we got to be locked in and focused on both ends of the court this year, especially that defensive point that they let go for a lot of last year. There's another leader potentially going out the door here, and I wonder what that kind of impact that'll have. But first, shout out to FanDuel going into the weekend. No better time to take advantage of this. In fact, this is the last time you'll probably be able to take advantage of this.
Guys, you gotta do it.
FanDuel, official partner of the NFL, official sports wagering partner of CLNS Media, still offering for a very short time here. Bet $5, get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket through YouTube TV, as well as the $200 in bonus bets they've offered in the past. It's their best offer yet. Patriots underdogs at home again this week need a win. You're getting 3 points for them. I like that. I always like taking the points, but FanDuel is giving you a lot more than that. $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket to watch all these games, as well as the $200 in bonus bets. So check them out at FanDuel.com/Boston. Show us some love as well by using that code and get all that they're offering right now. Again, this is gone. The YouTube TV Sunday Ticket offer, this is gone next week. I don't know if it'll be back, so take advantage now. All you got to do is bet $5, deposit $10, 21 plus, present in mass. First online real money wager only. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable. Bets that expire 7 days after receipt. That's FanDuel.com/Garden. Blake, he might be gone, Sherrod. The Globe reported a couple weeks ago that they're not expecting him back. They'd like him back, which, you know, I reported first about a month and a half ago. But for family reasons, even just where his career's at this point, what he's got left in the tank, you might not see Griffin in Boston this year, and maybe not even on any NBA court this year. I think he's probably mulling his future. And he did this, if you remember, Sherrod, into October last year. He didn't sign with the Celtics until into camp. So he could be back, but it seems unlikely at this point. And this, again, not just Smart, but Grant, another big voice in that room. Blake, more so at the end of the bench, but you think of what he did for all those end of the bench guys that weren't playing a ton. Hauser going through that massive slump. Pritchard especially, who wanted off the team and was just really distraught with how little he was playing last year and where his role seemed to be going. You could tell Blake helped all those guys through that. And I love those nights where he gave Horford a rest and went in and played really well. Was blown away with his impact last year compared to what I expected. And now I think he's a real loss for these guys.
Yeah. And he's at that point where you got to seriously thinking about just, you know, mailing it in and calling it a career. And he's had a hell of a career. 6-time All-Star, 5-time All-NBA, I think 3 times second team, a couple times third team, rookie of the year. to me, a Hall of Famer, it's not a matter of when, not a matter of if he gets into the Hall of Fame, but when. Will he be a first ballot one? Not sure about that, but he's definitely going in with the body of work that he put together, primarily with the Clippers. As far as the Celtics are concerned, you'd love to have a guy like that, because I do think that, his ability to keep the peace when things get a little bit sketchy inside that locker room after some games and after some tough practices, and having the wisdom and willing to basically offer up that wisdom to a lot of these young guys, you're going to miss that. But Blake has earned the right to determine and dictate where he goes next, even if that destination is, home, and call it a career. He's been that impactful. And so if I'm the Celtics, you'd love to have him back. But if you're the Celtics, one thing that you got to keep in mind, just because you don't begin the season with Blake Griffin doesn't mean you won't have him at some point down the road.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, Blake is not likely to return at the start of the season, but if certain things play out a certain way and Blake –
the door's open.
Yeah, they're not going to say, Blake, we're done. Bye-bye. No, it's going to like, if certain things break a certain way, you may be back here, or if you want to. And that's ultimately what this is going to be about. Does Blake want to return? Because I do think if Blake decides to not sign with anyone before training camp, I think that's a great thing for the Celtics, because that means that he's probably going to be looking at the landscape and looking for an opportunity to join a contender, because Blake ain't coming back to play for no team that's going to win 35 games. That's not happening.
Yeah, and he doesn't want to play through the whole regular season at this point, too.
And I don't blame him.
Like, does he want to be playing in November? I don't know.
Well, this is the thing, Bobby. With the way, like, just the way you just described his season after everything that happened, he did his job, he excelled, he even exceeded expectations for and for most people or some people. He still didn't get an opportunity in the playoffs. He still didn't get a chance, to even when things were down, when they were down 3-0, and it wasn't even close. So if you're Blake, you're like, do I really want to do the whole 82 game season again? And I'm not even going to get a chance, after, even if I'm better than I was last year, I'm still not sure Josue is going to play me. So maybe he's not maybe he's done in Boston, but like you said, Sherrod, mid-season, if another team calls, it really wouldn't shock me if he continues his career mid-season and goes elsewhere. I mean, maybe it is something. Maybe if they do call, maybe that's an opportunity as well. But I mean, if not, it's a heck of a career. It's not a disappointment, for Blake Griffin, and maybe Hall of Fame. But it really wouldn't shock me if we heard though that he signs to a team, mid-season, and he decides to come back. We'll see.
Because I wouldn't be surprised if he signs somewhere around his birthday in March, when he'll turn 35. Or sometimes shortly before that, just to give him a little bit of time to acclimate himself to whatever team. Even if he comes back to Boston, he's still going to have to acclimate himself to a new team. It always works out that way. But I love the fact that, again, this is a guy that you had a shot to play with him. You made an impression. And if he's going to sit out and not play right away and mull different opportunities, you're going to be one of the opportunities that he's going to give some thought to. And that's all you can do if you're the Celtics, when you're dealing with a guy who will have, I think, quite a few options, is you hope that you're one that he's considering. And if Blake decides to not begin the season with a team, which to me, I mean, if we're keeping 100, that's what I would do. I would absolutely, especially if you've made the kind of money that he's made and you've had the kind of career. It's not like you out here clipping coupons thinking like, oh, man, I need to get a job because I can't afford to live the way I'm living. Blake's good. He's really good money-wise. So it's not even about that. For him, it's about having a chance to compete for a championship and having a role. I don't think Blake is looking to go somewhere and play 25, 30 minutes. He knows that dude ain't coming through the door. You're getting 34, 35-year-old Blake Griffin, and that guy can play every now and then. And he can probably, if you're talking about, the second half of the season, he can probably get on the floor and help you win 2 or 3 games. But those 2 or 3 games might be the difference between you being the number 1 seed versus the number 4. And pretty much. And so if I'm Blake, which, I think it's just a smart play, sit your ass out and see how things play out and then decide where you want to play. And make sure that you go somewhere that has a role that you are comfortable with. Not that you're going to absolutely blow out the waters, but that you're comfortable with playing.
Yeah, and now that I think back to it, the reason he ended up on the Celtics in the first place is that Rob was down. Cornette had just gotten hurt in camp. No Mescal at that point either. So Celtics were looking pretty thin inside. Horford was another year older, and you went in the last season actually thinking Blake might play a significant role. They had Noah Vonleh in the mix there too at that point. So it's less of that this year with Porzingis in the fold and Rob healthy this time. There's no real minutes for Blake here either. So I wonder if that's a factor as well, because he again, much like Brogdon, he accepted that role last year, but Blake Griffin doesn't want to be sitting on the bench all year long and into the playoffs. And I know that pissed Josue off too, that they didn't even try to use him in the playoffs.
Sure.
So, if he can find another winning situation where he's actually needed, maybe that intrigues him more. Again, he was on that podcast with golfing or whatever he was doing there, talking about how great it was to play in Boston, how awesome it was here, and the fans and all that. So he enjoyed it, but I think it's just about weighing his different situations right now. As you mentioned earlier in the show, Sherrod, that rest rule came out this week. The NBA approved it, that you're not going to be able to rest 2 stars. Is that going to work here? Is that going to help the load management issue?
I don't think it's going to impact it one way or the other, because Tatum doesn't like the rest. So he's going to play as many games as he can. Jaylen Brown, similar. He likes to play. So and they never really looked to rest those guys under the load management. It was more applicable to Al Horford, Rob Williams, our good friend Malcolm Brogdon off the bench. And I think that's probably what it's going to stay like. There may be situations if Tatum or Brown is having some type of soreness and they're in a stretch where they're playing maybe 4 games in 6 nights or something like that, you might give them a night off there. And then you can use whatever ailment that he's dealing with to justify him not playing. And again, because of those 2 players and how consistently they have been wanting to play every game, or in certainly most games, it's a little bit different when the Celtics are saying, we're going to sit Jaylen Brown for this game against the Clippers, versus the Clippers deciding to sit, our good friend Paul George, or, the other guy who is the face of load management, Kawhi Leonard.
The pioneer.
Yeah, exactly.
This rule wasn't made for the Celtics.
Yeah. Kawhi Leonard is a great player. He may very well go in the Hall of Fame for being like the poster child for load management.
Seriously.
That might be his lasting legacy, other than winning a couple of championships.
Well, no, that's what solidified it, though, Sherrod. Winning that championship is like, oh no, this could be done. There's a formula to this.
Everyone's like, damn, you mean I can rest my best player like pretty much most of the season, and we still win a chip?
He's the pioneer. Yeah, they should name something after him.
Exactly. You know what? This is what you do. The Kawhi Leonard Award goes to the player who doesn't qualify for regular season awards, but is still a significant contributor to his team.
Even though he played like 40 games that season.
Exactly. Guys who play between 20 and 40 games get the Kawhi Leonard Award.
I will say,
right.
Regardless, players' fault, team's fault, I'm so glad they're trying to address it, because they had to.
Well, you know what that's about, Bobby? It's about the fans.
It's about the fans. You can't pay $100 and not watch the guys you want to go see.
Right.
Exactly. I mean, with all due respect, I'm not going to pay major money to see the Celtics play, and only to see Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum doing the same thing I'm doing. Watching
at least one, and that's the thing. They're saying you can rest 1, but you can't rest 2 or more.
Right.
Well, Tatum's going to be playing in Charlotte on Monday, so there you go.
Hey, that might be my favorite game. Well, one of my favorite games of the season, because. And Tatum,
they're gonna boo him,
and you know what? And he's gonna drop 40 on him.
Yeah, he will.
He's gonna drop 40 on him, and they're gonna lose.
It's like a hope.
And then we can say this is why Tatum don't want to come to Charlotte.
There's one more thing I want to hear from these guys on. First, though, a quick shout out to AG1. Love AG1. Been using it for well over a year now. It's 75 vitamins, minerals, adaptogens, probiotics, and more in your water each morning. A nice tropical flavor. The cool gear. Sherrod's holding it there. Love the crew neck. Love the green container you store it in. Nice glasses, nice thermoses to take it on the go.
Don't forget about the frother. They've got actually AG1 frother so that you can make it nice and smooth.
It's awesome. And you'll get a lot of that if you subscribe to it here. But at the very least, if you go drinkag1.com/garden, you're going to get a year's supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. But see if it's for you. Check out a subscription. You'll get cool gear like that. And check out the reviews. They're all amazing. It's drinkag1.com/garden. So shout out to them as well. We're about to wrap here. We'll be back next week, hopefully with more news, because, man, it's gone slow in the September here. But Giannis, I'm surprised this didn't get a little more buzz last week. Talking to the New York Times, saying that winning's his priority, and and not necessarily in Milwaukee. He's going to play wherever he has the best chance to win, and he loves the Bucks, and he's been there 10 years, and they've accomplished a lot. But
I think he wants to go through the brick wall, Sherrod. What happened? I guess that was just for the first championship. Remember he said that? He said, oh, people like to go around it, enjoy super teams. I like to go through it. And then he won a championship, and then now, I don't know. Go ahead.
So sounding the alarm a little bit here.
Well, this is what happened. He went through that brick wall in Milwaukee and realized, wait a minute, that hurt. I didn't go through a brick wall to get to the other side. Why did I do that? Let me just figure out. And so I think it's great. This is the thing I like about Giannis. I think Giannis is being authentically Giannis and just being open to what matters to him. He, as much as he cares about that Milwaukee community, and he's been a pillar of strength for them and has really connected with them. He cares more about winning. And if he senses that Milwaukee isn't committing themselves to winning to the level that he wants to be at, he's going to bounce. Now, here's the problem with that whole premise.
He asked for this roster, Sherrod, but go ahead.
This is a team that he wanted. This is the team that he went to bat for and said, these are my guys. This is what I want to rock with. Exactly. And the problem that he's starting to see now is that Father Time catches up with everyone, except he's a little bit faster than Father Time right now. But the guys on his team, Father Time is tapping every damn one of them on the shoulder like, bro.
Like, what's good? What's going on?
Father Time is looking at his clock like, as if he's Dame Lillard.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? So
Chris is like, chill. He's like,
exactly. Exactly. Middleton is like, come on, man. I was a second-round pick, and now you want to come at me? Come on.
I'm a 3 now. I used to be the 2. I'm a 3 now. Drew got the.
I'm trying to push this up, and Giannis is looking around like, gosh, Father Time's checking you. Father Time's checking you.
Yeah.
I don't know how good we're, and that's the thing. The one thing Giannis is not going to say, but the fact that he's open to possibly going elsewhere says it all. I don't think we're as good as we used to be.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we're championship medal anymore.
I mean, they lost in the first round.
Yeah, we got a lot of guys on our team. Well, we still have guys who won championships, but I don't know if we're that team anymore. Because I'm looking at Boston, damn, Tatum and Brown. I'm looking at, Philadelphia, and I'm looking at Miami, and I'm looking at all these other teams that are either in position to win a chip or they're lining themselves up to go get that one guy that will put them in title contention. And he's looking around and like, yeah, I do like Chris Middleton. He my dude, but that Jaylen Brown looks like a mighty attractive number 2.
I mean, who was their big offseason addition? Malik Beasley?
Say it again, Josue.
No, I said things done changed, like Biggie would say. He's looking around like things done changed. But no, what'd you say, Bobby?
I think their big offseason addition was what, Malik Beasley?
Yeah,
didn't add much.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's the thing though. Like that's the root of the problem, in my opinion, right? Look across the Eastern Conference. I mean, you just named them, Sherrod. I mean, and the Miami Heat, they didn't go out and making these splashy additions, right? No,
they're setting themselves up for the one fish they want. They know what they want. It's just not right.
But if you're Giannis, you got to look at that. I feel like he's using this head coaching thing as sort of like the scapegoat, being like, well, wait a minute, I didn't sign off on this. You guys got rid of my guy. I don't know if I trust this guy. It's like, is that really what it is, Giannis? Or is it more about looking at the rest of your team and you're looking at the Eastern Conference and you're like, man, Boston just got Porzingis now. It's like, okay, I got another guy that I have to deal with in the front court and back in the Eastern Conference. I mean, that's just one example, right? And I just feel like he's thinking these guys have to do something like that, whether it's a splashy trade or whether it's bringing in someone else or just finding a way to give him another piece to work with. And I feel like he's afraid to say that. He doesn't want to say that because it will go against what he's asked for, in my opinion, which is keeping these guys around. He likes a championship team, Sherrod, and he also thought that they were going to win at least get back to the finals at least a couple times these past couple of years. Now, obviously, that wasn't the case.
Well, not only is he concerned with what he's seeing, he's also concerned with what he's hearing, because there was a story in Sports Illustrated recently where the new coach, Adrian Griffin, was talking about building this thing up brick by brick. Now, as a player, you may mean just building on what we started before, but a player's thinking, that sounds like rebuilding.
Yeah, he mentioned that in the article.
Brick by brick, that sounds like rebuilding. And look, I'm a champion. I'm a 2-time MVP. I got a chip. I ain't trying to rebuild. I'm like Doc Rivers did an end in Boston. I don't want to rebuild.
Right.
I've done that before. That's why Doc left.
That's exactly.
And so, you know what this makes me think, and he's extension eligible this fall. I think he's got another year after this one, so he'd be a free agent 2 summers from now.
2 summers, yeah.
Say it, Bobby. Come
If
on.
he,
I know
if-
what you're thinking. Say it.
It doesn't matter as much to the Celtics. In fact, it'd be a great thing for the Celtics to see him out of the East.
A TD?
I think the top of the list.
Man, you're talking about a TD?
I think the top of the list, if he ended up demanding a trade.
Oh, the trade demand, a TD.
If he demanded
man.
a trade,
Oh.
I think it'd be the Thunder. I think they just have so many picks, so many young players.
I don't
They got
know.
that guy in Shea.
No, you're thinking about what's best for Milwaukee, I feel like, though. If you're Giannis, though, you don't see him thinking like Miami or someone like that. Like,
Yeah, but it's the same thing as with the Lillard thing, where these teams have to offer.
Yeah, but you're not thinking about that if you're Giannis, man. You want to go where you want to go. Like
Right.
if you're willing to go down that.
Are we gonna end up in a Lillard thing every time now, where it's like you gotta send me where I want to go?
I know, and that's another thing too. Because if that happens, then the Giannis thing is almost inevitable. You know what I mean? It'll feel like that.
I think Giannis, because he's already won a championship and he's clearly wanting to win another, you're gonna tell them, send you to a team that even after they trade for me, there's going to be enough pieces around there to win a championship. And I think you're right. Oklahoma City, they can basically open up the vault of all them damn draft picks, and they've got young talent that they can throw in the mix too. And when all the dust is settled, they can still have one of the top 5.
You have Shea, Giannis, Giddey even.
I mean, they got a roster full of young top tier talent that, again, they're going to have at some point. Oklahoma City is going to have to clean house, because there's no way that you can pay all those guys what their market value is worth and things like that. And if you're Oklahoma City, then you absolutely would package some of those guys plus however many picks you want to put in the mix to get a guy like that. And if you're Giannis, if you're serious about winning a championship and you got a chance to play with Gilgeous-Alexander, is that your point guard? Oh my God,
damn.
a dude who you know can give you 30 every night with the right talent around him, and you've got one or two of those bigs. And if by some way they're able to keep Dort, who I think is a really good defender.
Someone's got to go on the other side, Sherrod.
Yeah, he's
it's a lot of pieces.
They got, but that's the thing. That's the beautiful thing about their roster. They got enough pieces where they can literally unload like damn near 2 or 3 starters and add him and be like 2 or 3 times better.
I'm excited about them this year. I really am. That's our show for today. I'm glad we made it through the whole show without talking about the stupid world champion thing, which they're still talking about.
Oh, hey, Bobby. Shout out to Dennis Schroeder. Today's his birthday.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, shout out to him then.
No one's more excited.
The big 3-0.
No one's more excited than John Zanis, who was his biggest fan here in Boston.
You know what though?
That he went and grabbed the world MVP.
Man. He balled out. He was
awesome. I love that tournament, and now I'm extra bored because there is nothing on. NFL, I guess. I'm not as big of a football fan, but it's time, man. Training camp, please. October 2nd. Come in.
Should be a good one.
We need it. More and more guys getting back to Boston. Again, most of the young guys are back. Most of the new guys are there. I'm sure more will arrive next week. Porzingis, we'll wait and see how he's doing with the foot. Brogdon's arm, we'll see how that's doing once he gets there. But for now, thanks for joining us again this week. We had an interview with Mike Muscala yesterday. If you missed it, go check that out as well. SteelNSmedia.com. Sherrod, you got anything new out there?
Nah, just trying to deal with these knucklehead kids like Josue.
Oh man,
that's what we do.
Must be underdogs. Must be a lot of underdogs in there. Come on, give them a chance. All right,
a bunch of Josue's in there, so I got my hands full. Obviously,
Red Sox moved on from their GM. I was thrilled about that. We'll see how quickly they can turn it around. Patriots playing Sunday. Check out Patriots Press Pass for all the coverage. Taylor doing a great job through week 1 there. Love his work getting started on the beat this year. And Bruins, I think, is starting camp as well. So check out our Bruins channel as well. Josue Pavon, A. Sherrod Blakely, thanks, guys, for joining me here. We'll see you soon enough. Hopefully, John, Jimmy back next week as well. So subscribe, SteelNS Media, Celtics All Access. Josue and I might be scoring an interview this weekend, too. So stay tuned for that.
I was going to say, are we going to tease it or not? All right,
yeah. We'll see. We'll see if it comes together.
In the meantime, Cedric Maxwell podcast or, brand new episode. Check us out. And, we'll see.
How's Max doing? He's enjoying the off season? He ready to get back to work?
Oh man, he's enjoying himself down in Charlotte, man. He's been there
He doesn't want training camp.
no.
He
loves doing the episodes because he's just, it's perfect for him. It's a perfect balance. But yeah, he's itching for the season though, just like you, Bobby, in a sense. I think he's like 50-50 at this point though.
I've been watching The Winning Time. Obviously, season 1 was 80.
Yeah, it's a great show, man.
We're about to get to 81.
I'm a couple episodes behind, but I got to catch up. But yeah, man, this season's been crazy.
1981's coming up for me. That's Max's year.
That's what I was telling Max. I'm like, it's coming up this year, man. This season.
All right, guys.